Welcome back. Film recap. In South Korea, the underground oil pipeline framework is around 1,200 kilometers long. Unrefined petroleum is refined at different treatment facilities and moved to significant urban areas by means of pipeline consistently. There are individuals who drill into it to siphon oil and bring in cash. They're known as moles. Criminal Straw is keen on this business, so he employs the incredible drill bit to land the position. Done. In any case, the one that shows up is Job SAE professing to be drill bit. So when he attempts to work with a similar drill the well-known mole utilizes, he messes up and causes a break. The distribution center winds up detonating, and the men figure out how to get away from alive in the nick of time. Yet Job SAE gets his legs consumed. A couple hours after the fact, the police show up to examine the crime location, and when cop Man Sick sees the drill that caused the blast, he is certain this is crafted by Drill Bit, who he got in the past when he used to work in the Intel division. He doesn't tell the higher-ups about this, however, in light of the fact that he's lost all believability. So Man Sick asks his accomplice Sang-gu to assist him with doing the examination all alone. In the meantime, Straw goes to see D-Han, the mole that sent him the counterfeit driller, on the grounds that the genuine drill bit is excessively costly. Straw pounds D-Han and requests to see the genuine virtuoso. So later, D-Han orchestrates a gathering with Dolly, the real drill bit. While they talk about the subtleties, Man Sick and Sang-gu show up to blame them for being behind the ongoing blast and request that they show their legs. However, the absence of scarring places them free. A while later, Man Sick attempts to persuade his supervisor that the moles will attempt in the future. Yet he's overlooked. So all things being equal, Man Sick persuades Sang-gu to assist him with looking at every one of the unwanted structures nearby. Back to Dolly. He meets with Straw to complete the task Job SAE neglected to do, and Straw is so satisfied by the achievement that informs Dolly concerning an approaching greater occupation from a significant patron. A couple of hours after the fact, Dolly has a gathering with this sponsor, who ends up being Jinwoo, a rich oil refining organization proprietor. Jinwoo believes him should penetrate excessively specific risky openings and get sufficient oil to fill the tanks of a plant that will be destroyed in 50 days. So the occupation ought to be finished in a month. Dolly figures hurrying the work will make it go seriously. However, Jinwoo persuades him to join by tolerating to pay him $1 million. The occupation is going on in the cellar of a lodging that will be shut with the reason they're full. Dolly will be the head of a group painstakingly picked for the undertaking. Underground topography mapper Mr. Na, backhoe Jun Sab, also welder Job SAE. While the men work, Counter will look after the front counter to keep any observers away. In the event that the police at any point stop by, she'll enact an alert to caution the group, while they're getting half of the compensation ahead of time. There's a trick. In the event that any of them leave the inn before the task is finished, the agreement is void. Every one of their telephones are removed by Straw, who is filling in as Jinwoo's hooligan. The group quickly will work while whining about the terrible stench brought about by the sewer that runs under the inn. There's pressure among them since Dolly thinks he's superior to everybody there, except basically he pays attention to Mr. Na's information on the area to dig. Perfectly located. In the interim, Jinwoo is managing a credit he took with his stocks as security. He takes 50 million of organization assets to purchase low as opposed to paying what he owes in light of the fact that he's sure there'll be a blast soon that will permit them to sell high. Back to the group, they've made a respectable work in making the passage before they track down their most memorable issue, a store wealthy in lime. Its dampness makes things risky, so Mr. Na needs to circumvent it. Dolly believes there's adequately not time for another course, so they ought to simply twofold the help and push forward. A contention results, so Jun Sab attempts to quiet everybody somewhere near, making sense of they can crisscross the shafts for amazing help. While attempting to illustrate, he unintentionally cuts a wire and hits Job SAE, who presently needs to stir up some dust. Dolly hits him and abuses him, then, at that point, raises Job SAE's jeans to see the scarring and affirm he's the deadbeat that attempted to imitate him. Yet he's one to feel like the contention. Dolly sends them generally back to work. Mr. Na stops to take a few pills and Jun Sab inquires and to share, yet Mr. Na denies since they're pricey. After some seriously digging, they find a stone wall toward the finish of the passage. It's not difficult to break, however doing so would make parcels of dubious commotions, so Dolly advises Job SAE to get loud in the karaoke space to cover it up. In the meantime, Man Sick and Sang-gu are looking at every one of the neglected structures they can find. Sick finds where Dolly did the boring for Straw, and Sang-gu goes to actually look at the lodging, getting astounded when he finds Counter since this building should be unfilled. Counter makes sense of they returned as of late while squeezing the caution, but since of the wrecked wire, the group doesn't get the admonition. She can't prevent a cop from simply glancing around without raising doubt, so she trusts that Sang-gu will go down the hallway to contact the group through the walkie-talkies. As the men conceal their work, Job Sae occupies Sang-gu long enough with his singing that when the official comes to the cellar, the group takes care of the opening and is professing to accomplish sewer work. Sang-gu believes he's seen Dolly previously, so he imagines he's been to the station a couple of times to get Mr. Na when he become inebriated. Not tracking down anything of interest, Sang-gu leaves, and Counter quickly goes down to fix the caution wires. Nonetheless, something goes wrong and detonates, making Counter and Jun Sab get caught in the passage. Trusting them to be dead, Job Sae needs to take the risk to get their development cash and break, and Dolly needs to stop too on the grounds that they've uncovered a gas pipe. Nonetheless, Mr. Na would rather not surrender and begins diving in the event that their collaborators are alive. This ends up being smart since Counter and Jun Sab are to be sure alive and digging also, so among them three, they figure out how to make an opening to get away. Meanwhile, Sick has gotten back to show them what he's found. His supervisor is very dazzled, lastly acknowledges to send his men to check the region and track down the moles. In a little while, Dolly hears the caution and finds Job Sae attempting to take off with his cash. Dolly gets him and starts kicking him for nearly causing everybody problems, and Jun Sab joins the beating, yet Mr. Na prevents them from going excessively far. Job Sae makes sense of he has a wiped out child that needs the cash for his treatment, so Mr. Na attempts to persuade Dolly to make an exemption. In any case, that is when Dolly acknowledges something. He goes to see Counter and affirms she was the one that rang the caution since there are cameras that watch out for everybody's moves. An aspect of her responsibilities is additionally to inform their supervisor as to whether anybody defies the norms. Discussing Satan, Jinwoo shows up with Straw and his hooligans to caution the group of the agreement. Since no one got away from eventually, he acknowledges to allow them a subsequent opportunity. Yet presently they have 10 days to follow through with the task if they need to keep their lives. A while later, the hooligans torment Job Sae for attempting to get away. What's more, Jinwoo just allows him to pursue. He acknowledges an arrangement. Job Sae is given a mystery telephone. What's more, he should illuminate Jinwoo regarding all that occurs while they work. Assuming he gets along admirably, he'll be paid additional 100,000. The group returns to work, and Mr. Na continues to take his pills. Since the others continue to annoy him to share, he admits they're for malignant growth. In the interim, the police search for them utilizing metal finders, and when they at last get a reaction, they start digging with a backhoe. Counter sees this on the surveillance cameras and rings the caution, so the group promptly begins taking out everything from the passage. Dolly goes back to get a couple of metal things they neglected and is hit by a gas spill brought about by the police's digging, breaking his ribs as he falls oblivious. Mr. Na will not abandon him and puts on a cover to salvage him while Counter minds the police, who are presently leaving since they've understood they're playing with the gas pipes. Afterward, Mr. Na imparts one of his pain relievers to Dolly and requests a favor. He needs to go to the emergency clinic to mind his better half, who is having a medical procedure today, and it needs to be paid for. Counter and Dolly both decline to gamble with the agreement, yet later at night, Dolly alters his perspective. He takes his watch off and starts pounding the cellar floor to get to the sewers and help Mr. Na arrive at the clinic covertly. Job Sae discovers them and calls them for their twofold norms, so Dolly clears up he can't look at himself for the last wish of a parachute man. Tolerating this reason, Job Sae chooses to go with them so he can request that a specialist see his consumed leg. Counter likewise sees this break on the surveillance cameras. However, rather than advance notice Jinwoo, presently with the assistance of D-Han and his metal locator, Dolly makes an arrangement utilizing the utility pipes Mr. Na had enlightened them concerning to divert the oil. In the first place, Counter and Dolly meet with Jinwoo to offer the oil in return for 5 million, and when they get Jinwoo's alright, they start to work. They make an opening on the ground that D-Han covers with a compartment. Also, Counter introduces cameras on the sewer halls while the men do the boring. Job Sae has some time off as a reason to meet with Straw and let him know what's happening. Not trusting him, Dolly follows him and sees him selling out the group, However, he likewise finds something greater. Man-Sik and Sang-Gu are in the space since they've been following their telephone signs. To occupy the police, Dal-Yi runs into the forest to inspire them to pursue him, getting hit by a stone simultaneously, while Job Sai returns to the pipeline and introduces a camera for Jin-Woo to keep an eye on them. In the wake of losing the officials, Dal-Yi returns to the group and prepares to at last divert the oil. Counter sees the police appear in the sewers, yet there's no opportunity to stop them, owing to remain unseen by the oil organization that watches out for the line pressure. The group chooses to go for Plan B, which comprises of Jun Sab and D-Han penetrating an irregular wall, so that the police might be able to see them and pursue them out. The penetrating works out positively. However, Dal-Yi is in as well, much agony to continue to work, so he directs Job Sai to do the last step and follow through with the task together. Dal-Yi opens the valve to send an oil to the tanks at the processing plant, where Jin-Woo has accumulated all his expected purchasers. He opens a tap as well and affirms the oil is there, so Dal-Yi shuts the valve and lets him know on the telephone he'll gain admittance to the rest in the wake of getting compensated. In the meantime, the police's pursuit closes severely and Sang-Gu is shipped off the medical clinic with a messed up leg. In any case, Man-Sik won't surrender since somebody sends him an image of the new boring site. While Dal-Yi prepares to get Jin-Woo, Job Sai sells out them once more and opens the valves. Dal-Yi gets him in the nick of time and thrashes him prior to detaching the mysterious camera. Counter, Jun Sab, and D-Han likewise return, and together they show Job Sai that Mr. Na had passed on his cash for his child to cause him to feel disgrace for his disloyalty. In the wake of tying Job Sai up, Dal-Yi meets with Jin-Woo and tells him the best way to utilize the valves. Nonetheless, rather than paying them, Jin-Woo calls his men to thrash them and get the oil for nothing. Job Sai escapes from his ropes and assists Dal-Yi with thumping the men before he takes off. On the surface, different hooligans enter the holder simultaneously, so D-Han utilizes a forklift to tip the holder over, permitting the group to leave the sewers and track down the cash. Dal-Yi remains a bit longer in the sewers, exploiting the rifle he's recovered from one of the oblivious hooligans to undermine Jin-Woo. At that point, they're found by Man-Sik, so Dal-Yi occupies him by tossing the rifle at him and advising him to capture Jin-Woo prior to taking off as well. Sadly, when he joins his group, it's past the point of no return. Straw and his men have caught them all. The hooligans hit Dal-Yi too prior to taking him and the remainder of the gathering to the line room, where they find Man-Sik has additionally been gotten. Jin-Woo opens the valves to fill his tanks, then introduces a bomb as he makes sense of his arrangement. There are bombs on the oil supply behind the water tanks as well. At the point when he explodes them all, the pipeline will be busted and the country's primary oil supply will be down and out, so Jin-Woo's organization will be the main vendors on the lookout. Such an immense blast will likewise kill many individuals. However, Jin-Woo doesn't mind as lengthy, as it gives him cash, and it'll seem as though it's the shortcoming of a mole heist turned out badly. Frantic to get away, Dal-Yi makes the group kick over the welding machine, and with the assistance of Counter's lighter, they light a fire that consumes Dal-Yi's back yet in addition consumes the rope. When he's free, Dal-Yi snatches the bomb and tosses it in one of the vacant utility hallways before he bounces it the sewer water so the blast doesn't contact him. Jin-Woo explodes the bombs at the tanks as well, both to carry on his arrangement and kill Straw and his men so they don't squeal on him. Yet all the same, the blast isn't quite so large as he anticipates. Truth be told, the tanks just deliver water. It would appear while everybody was battling, Job Sai changed the valves and sent wastewater to the tanks rather than oil. The group and Man-Sik leave the sewers, and the official promptly calls for reinforcement while they watch the appearance of Jin-Woo and the hooligans, who need retribution. Another battle follows, and they use anything accessible to guard themselves, from the forklift to an oil hose. Dal-Yi pounds Jin-Woo. What's more, expects to kill him. However, Man-Sik prevents him from turning into a killer rather than simply a hoodlum. Man-Sik's reinforcement shows up then and everybody gets captured. After 3 years, the group has been liberated waiting on the post-trial process, and is working in their very own shop. Be that as it may, at the point when Man-Sik stays with them, he finds them in the cellar penetrating a wall, and doesn't accept them when they say they're accomplishing sewer work. So another contention begins like the past times. Much obliged you for watching. See more videos, subscribe our channel.